Hello there, everybody. My name is Forced to Reckon, and I am joined by my.
How Cooler 2000. Hello, your co-host. I'm slow on the uptake today.
And welcome back to the Democratic Union. I mean, the Dupload.
Dude, since we figured out what that means, we want to keep using Dup.
We might change it. We might change. I think it's funny that we get to make fun of a shitty fucking political group.
It is. It's just, I went a little bit of a tirade, and now I get calls to become a political advocate.
We are joined today by our wonderful, I was going to say co-host. You're kind of a co-host today, but our wonderful guest and a very, very hungry hippo, the Great Hippo, SCP author extraordinaire.
Hello.
Hello.
Great Hippo on the SCP Wiki. I've written maybe 30 articles, 30 to 40.
Ooh.
Since 2017. I'm actually I haven't been here very long. I think the place has been around since 2011. So I'm almost 8 years after it started. I started writing a bunch of articles, and I think I've been writing for about 4 years there.
Well, you've been writing longer than I have, because I haven't. Neither of us have written anything for it. Probably never will. Though maybe if I ever have an idea, which isn't just an overpowered character.
But Force, isn't this what the whole podcast is about?
No.
Having ideas, manufacturing them out of intriguing stories.
For like games, not for
everything.
Like writing a story.
We can repurpose them. Don't worry, it can be rebuilt.
You're just trying to distract from the fact that you haven't brought anything, aren't you?
Well, I was. No, I can't anymore. No, can I?
That's what you get for trying. Anyways, Hippo, welcome to the show. How you doing?
All right.
We're gonna go ahead and get started. I think with Hippo, you've brought an SCP for us to read, one of your own, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
As I.
This is SCP-3352 called Bethlehem Steel.
Ooh. Grab the page.
There we go.
We need to make sure that's it. Oh wait, I was about to say check the author, but then I remembered. This is by our friend, the lovely Hippo.
Thank you, the Great Hippo, for this content which we are about to enjoy.
Thank you for the content.
And you may begin when you are ready, sir.
Oh, should I read?
Yes. Yeah. You start the reading. You can toss it off as soon as we get to the description if you want to. But
it doesn't matter to me. All right, let me see here. Special containment procedures. The Hardwick Petroleum Refinery has been closed since 1992. The property was purchased by Foundation Assets and remains under surveillance. Negotiations with local city government for its demolition are underway. SCP-3352 is an anomalous event that occurred on July 2nd, 1992 at the Hardwick Petroleum Refinery, located in the city of Hardwick, Pennsylvania. The event occurred in the 476 HF alkylation unit, a unit that converts isobutane and other alkylenes, primarily propylene and butylene, into alkylate, a component of high-octane gasoline.
I love
chemical
oil mechanics.
It's meant to be very okay, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, that's where my brain is. My brain. As I mentioned before, I've had 2.5 hours of sleep because I was playing Elden Ring. We're recording this the day Elden Ring released, and I was playing Elden Ring until late and streaming it, and that had a lot of brain thinking going on because you have to brain think to fight things in that game.
So, you're Pebble Brain at the moment.
I am Pebble Brain.
You're activating my neurons. Keep going.
Or like Gravel Brain.
The SCP is associated with a single rigid steel I-beam located in 476 HF. This beam supports a pipeline attached to 476 HF's reactors via an MOV, or motor-operated valve. The line was part of 476 HF's emergency shutdown system, providing a means to swiftly shunt hydrofluoric acid, used for alkylation, into a de-inventory vessel 2.5 kilometers away. An inscription on the I-beam's upper half reads, "God bless U.S. Bethlehem I-beam steel, MSW." It is otherwise unremarkable.
Oh.
Since you're the author, I get to ask these interesting questions. Like, did you make that picture? Did you just Sharpie on something in order to take a picture of it?
This is actually, I actually used to work in a refinery. And so this is actually an inscription that it was in the refinery. And there's a whole story behind this. And this entire SCP is basically a retelling of that story, but in a sort of fictionalized way, like in adding magic and making it less like the nonfiction is believable. When you hear it, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
but I threw in magic to make it a little bit more escalated. It also made and make the stakes much higher.
This
like I can explain the story afterwards. It actually happened.
Yeah.
Kind of ruin, but it kind of breaks the story if you know the story already.
We have a similar, or had last time I checked, it was about a year ago. I used to work at a Salvation Army, like 7 years ago, a while ago, and it was the dock supervisor there. And one day we got a hole in the wall. Somebody just like slipped in some furniture that we were bringing in, put a hole in the wall right outside the office. Didn't get fixed for like a month. And one day I took a little stuffed teddy bear and I just put him in the hole in the wall so that people would see it. And I'm like, fucking, it was kind of like a grungy teddy bear. We were going to throw it out. I didn't want him to go die, so I just put him in there. And then over the course of the next like year working there, people added more and more little stuffed animals to it. It never got fixed.
Over it? And it never got fixed.
No. Eventually, one of the more handy people started making things at home and like mounted like little racks, and they made like a little family. And so last time I went back there was like a whole like shelving unit of just like stuffies and stuff that have been set there that were supposed to be thrown out, and it's just like the rehomed stuffed animals.
It's halfway home for stuffed animals.
Of all the stuffed animals that were going to get thrown out from donations, just get put on a little shelf there, and the hole is still there with the one guy just sitting in it. Weird things happen in life. All right.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you pull from real life experience. Do you want to popcorn off to someone else, or?
I'm fine. Keep going, or either way is fine by me. I don't mind. There are a couple more difficult terms. I don't know if
Powercore, you want to read difficult terms?
Do I? Yes, yeah. I would be totally okay with it, because stumbling is part of the process of improving.
You start. You can popcorn over to me after the second gray box.
Sure. Addendum 3352.1. At approximately 2 a.m. on July... Ooh,
yes.
Wow, we're struggling already. At approximately 2 a.m. on July 2nd, 1992, a fire ignited off the elbow flange of a heat exchanger located in 386, a catalytic reformer unit. The on-duty operator reported this to the shift supervisor, but after several failed attempts to snuff the fire out with steam, was told to take no further action. I have to go slowly. Slowly. Eyes not working right now. At 3:45 a.m., the flange experienced a catastrophic failure. Burning high-pressure hydrogen melted several adjacent exchangers, producing a chain reaction. The resulting detonation killed the operator on the unit and ejected burning debris as far as 5 kilometers. During a 1993 inquiry, William Parrish, 386's lead operator, described the event. I was in a truck delivering samples to the lab when it happened. On one moment, it's night, and then, out of nowhere, it's day again. Then came the boom. Jesus Christ, what a sound. Like somebody just dropped a skyscraper right behind me. I knew right then it was the exchangers. I told them to fix those things again and again. I should have shut them down. I should have shut the whole unit down the first time they started lighting off. By the time I got to the fire, that's when the second explosion hit. 4 operators from an adjacent unit and the shift supervisor, Brian Burton, attempted to use the refinery's internal fire water system to fight the massive blaze. The lone surviving operator, Daniel Rule, gave the following testimony. I fucking tell him, there's ice on the fucking fire hydrants, you stupid fuck. I scream it in his face, but he won't listen. He just keeps saying we need water to cool down the pipes, not that to keep the fire under control. And I keep screaming, there's ice on the fucking hydrants. He looks up at me. This short little fuck who probably got his job from daddy, who don't know the first thing about crude, who probably ain't ever heard the word no in his entire life, he looks up at me. And now there's look in his eyes. He says, real soft, either open that lineup or get out my way. And then I look at those kids holding that hose. I look right back at him, right in his eyes. I fold my arms over my chest, plant myself down like a tree, and I tell him, no. That fucker cold cocks me! Just straight up breaks 3 of my teeth with a steel span. Jesus. I swear to God, it looked brand new too. Probably the first time little shits used it. I drop like a sack of bricks, and then he starts hollering, spitting, screaming, kicking me. I curl up into a ball and roll away. The next thing I know, he's at the hydrant, he's opening that line, and then, fuck. He was a little shit, but those kids didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that.
Uh-oh.
No. I've got a nice bit of intrigue. Also, I really like the way the dialogue's written. It just flows, even in my adult state. I can just get into it. I like playing characters.
Good. That's very good.
Popcorn over to you, Force, after the second gray box.
Yes. Ha ha. Just voice.
Harmonizing, gotcha.
Unbeknownst to refinery personnel, the internal fire water system had been compromised a week prior. A shift supervisor defied procedure by using a fire hydrant to flush what he believed to be an out-of-service vessel. This vessel was, in fact, still in service and had been backing high-pressure liquid propane into the fire water system for 8 days.
And propane accessories.
God damn it.
Appreciate the reference, yeah.
Thank you. You may continue, Force.
Liquid propane depressurized through the hose, rapidly dropping its temperature and freezing both the supervisor and 3 of the operators to it. Despite ripping portions of their arms free, all 4 perished when the propane cloud ignited. Ouch. Immediately after this second explosion, operators initiated emergency shutdowns on all units. This included the activation of 476HF's emergency shutdown system. In 1993, Jefferson Reeds, one of the refinery's engineers, explained how the system worked. Ask a chemist to compile a list of their top 10 worst chemicals to work with, and hydrofluoric acid might not make number 1, but it's making the list. Sulfuric acid is safer, but you need a lot more of it for alkylation. So, HF is the way to go if you want to save a buck. But I cannot overemphasize, this is horrible, horrible stuff. For starters, it burns through just about anything. That includes glass. When you get some on you, it doesn't just burn your skin, it screws with your nervous system and slips into your bloodstream. There, it can disrupt your body's ability to
metabolize.
There, it can disrupt your body's ability to metabolize calcium, giving you a heart attack. It boils at room temperature and quite literally eats your bones. In short, get splashed with a quart of this stuff, and there's a pretty fair chance you'll be dead in 24 hours. The low boiling point is what makes it a real problem, though. You think a vat of bone-eating acid is bad, now imagine it's a burning cloud of bone-eating acid. Pretty sure it's already a spell, yeah. Imagine that cloud is rolling through the town we're built on top of. Yep, cloud kill death. If the wind's blowing the right way, an HF cloud can kill thousands, tens of thousands. Could take out the whole city of Hardwick. And that's why we installed the emergency shutdown system. Fire breaks out, you slam this button, and 24 fire monitors douse the unit with several million gallons of water. While the HF is getting cooled down to a liquid state, it's also getting shunted to a de-inventory tank way off-site. When Michelle hit that button, she was making the right call. It's the call I would have made too. How could she? How the hell could any of us have known the fire water system was loaded with friggin' propane?
And propane accessories.
This actually has happened once, where somebody accidentally backed propane into the fire water system of a refinery. That's what this is based on.
Jesus.
So they turned the entire fire water system into a propane delivery system.
Oh, God. Can anybody say explosion juice?
Yeah. Luckily, They noticed it before anything happens, precisely because of the reason of what the other guy was yelling about. Somebody noticed the fire hydrants all had ice on them in the middle of the summer, and they're like, "What?" And
How is this happening?
That would be an issue.
when propane escapes, it auto refrigerates. Whenever it freezes off when it leaves a liquid state. So like it was slipping out of the fire hydrants, just hissing out, and as it did, it froze the fire hydrant.
That's both a good thing it indicated, but probably not good that they also had leaking propane out of their fire hydrants.
Yeah.
I'm actually a lot of refinery, or at least when I worked in a factory, not really a refinery, but a lot of factory workers I know are smokers. So I'm surprised really bad happened before it got noticed.
Even without like smoking, one person accidentally makes a spark by two metal bits clashing together next to a fire hydrant, which you don't think has propane in it.
Yeah, although the major source of ignition in those sort of environments is always trucks and cars. But yeah, that'll do it too.
Fair enough.
It leaves their truck or car on, and it's like the whole thing is basically it's a combustion engine that's going to ignite something.
Oh yeah,
you guys made a miniature rocket. Impressive.
All right. At 4:07 a.m., Michelle Dunwick, 476HF's lead operator, activated the emergency shutdown system. All 18 fire monitors opened to the fire water system. Wait, did I read this already? No. Yes. No.
Nope.
Ejecting high-pressure liquid propane directly into 476HF's pipe alley. Once the propane cloud ignited, the MOV for the de-inventory system melted shut, trapping over 500,000 gallons of rapidly expanding hydrofluoric acid inside an alkylation unit that was now on fire. Jesus. Tanya Sullivan, part of the refinery's ERT, Emergency Response Team, described the situation. We just realized the refinery's whole fire water system was full of propane. We were switching over to city water to try and fight the blaze when 476 lit up. Then we were told the MOV failed. 476 was burning and full of boiling acid. If that acid kept getting hotter, the whole unit would blow. That's when we knew this place was done for. No way we'd still be running, not after this. But at that point, it was about saving our jobs. Not anymore. At that point, you know the risk when you work in a shithole like this. If fire don't get you, the cancer from all the toxins will. But if 476 blew, it wouldn't just take us. It'd take everything in a 3-mile radius. When you build a refinery, you're putting everyone around it in the line of fire. That means something is owed. Stakeholders, the owners, the supervisors, none of them feel the weight of that debt. But someone has to. Someone has to lift that load. That's why we all grabbed our shit and ran down to 476 as fast as our legs could carry us. Not to save our jobs, not to save the refinery, not even to save our own skin. We did it because this shithole might have been done for, but we'd be damned if we let it take anyone else with it. All right, Hippie, you want to take back over for the end?
Sure. As the ERT fought to cool down the flames, Matthew Watkins, a 476HF operator, ran down 476HF's burning pipe alley to manually operate the MOV's bypass and evacuate the boiling acid. The valve was so hot that it melted through my gloves the instant I touched it. When I opened it, I could hear the acid hissing and crackling as it rushed through the de-inventory line. But by the time I was peeling what was left of my wet, sticky palms off that hot metal, it was clear that it didn't matter anyway. You ever see concrete boil? It doesn't, not really. But when you hit it with enough heat, hard enough, fast enough, it turns brown, then gets soft, and all the pockets of water in it, all the other chemicals, they start boiling and bursting free, like big wet pools of bubbling tar belching out toxic fumes. The whole pipe alley was like that. The ground, the pillars, and the de-inventory line support struts. The fire monitors were torching everything, and those torches were pointed straight at all 6 struts. It was so hot that they had blasted the concrete off the steel beams. 5 of the 6 beams were already slag. The line was sagging, just waiting for the last beam to give. Once it did, the de-inventory line would snap and dump 500,000 gallons of boiling acidic poison right atop the pipe alley and into the heart of the city. I just stood there, surrounded by roaring flame, waiting for it to give, waiting to die, just trying to make peace with it, that we'd done all we could, and it still wasn't enough to stop us from killing everyone. So I kept waiting, and waiting, and waiting, and I swear to God, it was ready to give. It was getting the worst of it. It was supposed to give. It had to give. By the end, it was glowing so bright that I couldn't even look at it anymore. But for 3 minutes, the last thing, the only thing standing between 10,000 souls and all the fires of hell was that thin, solitary beam of Bethlehem steel. and the beam did not give, not one goddamn inch. All 500,000 gallons of hydrofluoric acid were safely shunted to the de-inventory vessel located off-site. Once the fires were extinguished, the refinery was closed and the disaster investigated. Foundation researchers determined that although 476HF's I-beam had been exposed for several minutes to temperatures well in excess of 2,000 degrees Celsius, well above steel's melting point, it had sustained no structural damage whatsoever.
The end of that last box, it was giving me chills. I physically have like pimples.
That was one hell of a beam.
Yeah, and I suppose the idea is the only thing that's anomalous is the beam didn't break. That's it. It's
the literal beam.
In Aftermath, it's not indestructible. It's just a normal beam. So they're like looking at it, it's like there's nothing. Like it's not. We can melt it. It should have melted then. Like there's the idea. It's not even. That's why the SCP is neutralized, because there's no anomaly anymore. It's just an event.
Mm-hmm.
Just one time it should have melted, and it did not.
It's more like an entity protecting people. Just
it stuck out. It stood out.
It felt all their in my mind. It felt all their like belief, and just manifested that momentarily.
It became a deity.
Their desire to protect.
It does have God Bless written on it.
It became God. Oh my God.
Writing that down.
Okay, I'm not even gonna bother.
But I really liked that story, because even though SCP stories are normally more like mysteries you have to piece together, this is just a solid short story, beat for beat. It works. You understand what's happening, and it reaches a conclusion. And at first you start to wonder toward the latter half, I wonder where the steel beam's going to come in. I almost forgot about it, and I'm just interested in the story. Oh shit, how are they going to stop this reactor from melting down? Then it all comes together when that beam is the only thing that held it all together.
Right. That's actually the premise when I was writing the story. Exactly what I wanted to go for was the idea. I mentioned this beam, and you're like, okay, and then the beam does not even get mentioned, and you're supposed to get completely distracted by this other story, which is just of rising stakes of this is getting fucking worse and worse and worse, and everything is on fire, and it's horrible, and there doesn't seem to be any way this can go right, and then the beam comes out of nowhere, and it's like, nope, it's okay. The beam didn't melt. This one beam out of nowhere suddenly saves the day.
Deus Beam Machina.
Yeah, basically that premise. Literally. Everything goes wrong until one thing just refuses. It says, no, I'm not going to go wrong.
And it's actually really impressive. This is also a really impressive thing in like societal situations, like with people. Like a lot of bad things can happen with mobs and groups and stuff like that, but sometimes it takes just that one person just refusing to go with the crowd or buckle to the pressure, to make the people in the crowd start to go, to make other people start thinking, or to make people recognize what's going on and be like, okay, maybe this needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. That's part of why I got chills there at the end of just like the beam did not give not one goddamn inch. It's like, to me, those are my favorite moments in stories where it's like one thing stands and quells a tide long enough for everyone else to stop the problem.
The beam got a big damn hero moment.
Literally. I say that a lot today. You're going to hear that a lot today. Normally, I hold back on the saying literally, but I'm literally too tired to stop myself from saying literally constantly.
You're literally going to run the word literally into the ground. So, for
God
our
bless
ideas
U.S.
segment,
Bethlehem I-beam steel.
That was one hell of a bit of Bethlehem.
Well, before the idea segment, though, what was the like actual original story? Like, what were the differences and like how it actually happened versus, or what actually happened?
What happened was I used to work in a unit, and I actually saw this inscription on one of the beams, and it's just a beam that's holding up a pipe about like I want to say a 12-inch wide hydrogen pipe. And if you look at it, the beam is misaligned with the pipe. It looks like somebody jury rigged something to like keep the beam there so it can support the pipe, but it wasn't designed for it. So I asked somebody about it, and they said, well, back in the day, like maybe 70s, what happened was that hydrogen line was in another position, and something went wrong, and they had a fire at one of the exchangers, and that hydrogen line is like a 12-inch thick 400 psi hydrogen line, and it started to drop. Like it started to sag, and if it had kept going, it would snap. and as a result of it snapping, it would basically turn into a flamethrower and like torch the entire unit. But what happened instead was it started to drop, and this fucking beam that had no reason to be there, that was part of a previous project that like literally had just been forgotten to be taken out, was just in the way, and it just landed on the beam and just boom, and stopped it from snapping. And they were like, "That's great, like we'll take it, sure, yeah, that's great."
Thank you,
And
God.
and they decided if they're going to keep the beam there because it really wanted a job. They're like, "Okay, it's fine, you can have it." And so somebody wrote that on there because if that hadn't been there, that would have snapped and probably killed like 4 guys that were on the unit at the time.
I think it
That being made one hell of a resume. You know, it got the job.
Yeah.
It's that guy who shows up every day to a work site and just starts doing the job until they're like, "Do you actually work here?" No. Well, I guess you do now. You've been doing the job for 6 months.
The weird part is, how would he? You don't get paid when you do that, do you? You just kind of show up and then do the work, then go home.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want the job.
You go to, hey, where's my paycheck? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, who are you? I'm not on the payroll, but I did all the work.
All right.
But for lists of ideas, how do we want to? What's the circle?
Well, as always, either you or I will start with the ideas so that Hippo's not put immediately on the spot and can see kind of the things that we come up with.
Of course.
The other one of us will go, and we'll round it back to Hippo for another idea, and then we'll just keep cycling until we're out.
We've mined our content. I'll go first because I'm bringing up the rear of the pack here. I had a couple interesting ideas from the story. One was just by how the refinery is so intricate and how it works together. The thought of like a living creature being a refinery. The way each of the chemicals come together in order to mix and ensure they have proper pressurization to roll through is kind of like a giant creature. So why not just make a giant creature that's actually an oil refinery or some form of material refinery?
Are you familiar with a Boltzmann brain?
I am not.
His brain is a philosophical concept that involves a brain emerging through random static. Like if everything just happens to go the right way, then there's no reason you could imagine, because the brain's basically just different operations in a certain way functioning together. So you can see a refinery that way if it just moves in just the right way and everything is just in the right position, because it's a very complex network of different control valves and pneumatic. There's gates, like the same as logic gates in computers and everything. Logic gates exist in refineries; they're just valves instead of. So like all that is possible. That could align itself just right, and suddenly the refinery is a brain.
Yeah, it's because I've heard about the idea of emergence, and I've always really liked that as a philosophical concept because it seems to be true. Even like the human body, there's a bunch of different independent biological processes that came together because they realized they could do their own process more efficiently, and we've just stacked that infinitely into a living creature. And even for the difference between a sentient creature and a non-sentient one, you just keep stacking those processes till it becomes so complex. It's basically a new thing. It emerged into something larger. Yeah, I get those strong vibes, seeing like both factories, refineries, even the people themselves play a role in it as like smaller cells or antibodies to make it analogous to a creature, constantly going through, maintaining, and improving, and removing things that could potentially cause harm to the larger refinery systems.
So, for me, one of the ideas I had following the refining process was a semi-classic story of you enter a town and there is a refinery, a structure that is having missing disappearances and stuff like that, and people have been disappearing, nobody knows what's going on, and you're hired to help the local guard investigate it. The difference is that this is an obelisk, like a big obelisk, kind of like a tree or something, that branches out and punches into different like dimensional planes, like different planes, to pull magical energy and refine that magic into like crystallized formats of magic that, you know, you can use for various purposes, such as like as we made up last week, fucking pocket spells.
Oh yeah,
spell pills that you just pop in your mouth, or freeze-dried spells. Or just like batteries for like I have spell gear in my campaign, which are basically just magical items that have batteries that anyone can use, don't require attunement, and just cast spells and do other various things. So long as they have magical crystals to power them. Pretty standard crystal tech. But
I like the idea of applying refinery logic to magic.
Yeah, that's in my campaign. That is one of the big key components. Is it's like a industrial age sort of situation, or like just pre-industrial. There is a giant plasmatic sea and the cloud layer that an entire society like lives upon these floating alms above it. And the way they survive, one of the things that they do and utilize is they draw that raw plasma energy up and then refine it down into various crystallized and liquid forms of magic that are more capable to be utilized in vessels, which can float upon that plasma, or powering lights and weapons and tools and devices.
Weapons is the most important part.
And because of
the only part.
Well, for a lot of it, like even though there's like military presence up there, a lot of it is espionage, like warfare, because there's not a lot of resources and not a lot of manpower because it's small little islands. So it's hard to just
open kill, but I do
full
like
on open warfare. But yeah. But yeah, so I was thinking of like a giant obelisk version of that, and then your quest, it could be something as simple as the classic. It's actually secretly siphoning off magic to overload a reactor or something at a specific given time, and the players have to stop that. Or my other interesting option was that it is funneling that magic into a sort of like a magical ritual, allowing one individual person who's secretly siphoning off the magic to summon some form of elder god or powerful eldritch entity that the players have to stop from being summoned. A more fantastical version of that, like, it's gonna explode! But in this case, the explosion is Cthulhu. Or a more D&D appropriate elder god.
Luthu. Yeah. Asmodeus.
I was thinking of somebody else whose name I've just forgotten, but yeah.
I think I've already written something similar to this, but the only idea that springs to mind, this is kind of different, I guess, that I like the idea of refining abstract things. So refining memories, a refinery that refines memories. So instead of like crude or chemicals, you are refining literal memories from people for various purposes, storage purposes, or also just to re-experience them yourself, or to sell them, package them, whatever. It doesn't really matter. So like you could refine happiness from someone's brain, or refine sadness, or refine a very specific memory about a specific point in time, and that sort of stuff. And the distillation process involved in that. Distillating? Yes, distilling. Pardon me.
There you go.
Distilling someone's brain. And now actually that word comes up, it would not be a refinery. It would be a distillery. That would be a much better approach. Because that's a much more smaller... distillery is just a small refinery. That's it. Same idea, same technology, same processes. But a distillery makes much more sense. So like, same as alcohol brewing, but you're doing it to somebody's memories. So like an inn or a tavern where they're making some sort of mead or something I was
about to say, I kind of want to put this in my setting. I have a city where this type of thing would work great as like a hookah lounge type thing, where you could just go in and kind of like inhale the memories or the emotions that have been distilled to like experience them in extreme or relive them.
You asking for permission to put me in a hookah lounge. This is the full context of that request.
No, I'm asking Hippo if he would like to name that place.
Name it.
I have no good ideas for names. I'm not very good at names. I actually have like a backup list of names that I rely on for this sort of thing, because like I'm not good at coming up with them on the fly. You know what? Actually, Forget Me Not. That works.
Forget Me Not.
Whatever the name of that flower is. There's a flower called the Forget Me Not.
Forget Me Not flower.
Yeah, I
Oh, it's a
vaguely am aware
scorpion.
of this flower.
I imagine they can, if you wanted to make them kind of nefarious, the way they do it is like, if somebody's hanged in the city or something, they just grab the corpse.
Extract the
That's how
memories.
you find them. Is there people? There's like a mortuary who's
Yep.
like, our corpses keep disappearing and we don't know why. Can you help us find them? Because one of these was like a lordling, and we're gonna get in a lot of trouble if we can't find his body for the.
And,
In
well,
the hookah lounge, we already liquidated him. Oops.
yeah, and maybe they just want the brain, so it's like bodies without brains keep showing up, or the brains keep getting scooped out, and they keep because they're refining it, and that would make sense for a lithid too, as for who's doing it then, because that seems like a thing a lithid would be interested
It
in.
does seem like a thing Illithid would be interested in, which is funny because Illithid are the main villains of my campaign right now.
Oh, really?
as the well, yeah, that's what the squid guys are. The tentacles.
Oh, that's what the squid guys are. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, they eat brains.
Classically, they eat brains. They're like one of the primary like repeat enemies. They have also been fighting a lot of Slod.
I like Slotty. Yeah.
So, Power Core, I need you to deafen for a second. I will put down my finger when.
Sure. You know, I'm gonna go get something to eat. I'll be back. You're gonna see me at my happy. Damn it! We started talking about D&D campaign again. I'm distracted.
You have any other ideas, Power Core?
I had a couple. Like, first off, I really like the memory refinement hippo. It's kind of like, damn. I've not played Cyberpunk in a bit, but I remember the brain dances was such an interesting mechanic. I wish I did more with. So, like, you could recreationally go into brain dances, and it feels like that because you could take someone's experience, make them have an experience, then harvest it and use that experience commercially.
See, I think the funnest thing they could have really done with brain dances, though, is like, and this was something that was a little tangent. This was something that was like given as like a wouldn't this be interesting if, and it was the idea that players could record a brain dance and then upload
and play each other's brain dances.
Yeah, so you could just download brain dances from an in-game library of other people, and it could be things like, I'm going to brain dance this mission. Here's an optimal way to do this mission. And so it wouldn't make entire sense in universe, but
it's a meta thing.
It'd be a fun way to be like, you can then watch them play through the mission and like look around and tag your own stuff and figure out your own paths and routes, and you've seen the mission ahead of time. And
it'd be a real cute walkthrough thing, kind of like Dark Souls' messages. But another idea that I had was the magical, similar to the magical refinery, a magical industrial miner. So this could be a whole campaign. I haven't played Mines of Vendelver, so tell me if this is already done in Mines of Vendelver, but
I read it ages ago.
Yeah, just with like with modern mining techniques, because I think most of our miners use some form of chemical in order to extract materials more efficiently. Using this, but with magic, because I love gratuitous chemical names and their balances. In another life, I would have been a chemical engineer, but it's harder to work with chemicals, so I chose programming instead. But I love all of the different names. I want it to be as complex and jargon heavy as possible. Your player should not know what the fuck is going on. But that's why you have the dedicated chemical engineer class who can then translate it down into layman terms.
Or, one of the players just Googles all the chemical terms.
They could do that, but it's magical force. They don't know which thing translates to which unless they're actually have worked in a miner before. But that as a whole campaign and potentially it melting down would be a good premise. You need to reach each section in order to turn off, like, the evocation magic is flowing into conjuration, meaning it's going to summon an explosion, because that's how those concepts mixing together would work.
Yes,
so you need to go through and stop the meltdown from happening.
I had an awful idea ages ago when I was very young. In Dungeons and Dragons.
Tell us.
So there's a question that I always wanted to answer, which is, where the fuck do dungeons come from? And the idea that I had as a kid was there is actually a factory that builds these dungeons. And it's a planescape thing again. So like what they do is they plane shape the entire fucking dungeon, custom orders for people into other planes. And the idea is that this factory is a dungeon as well. And the factory is like, because there's a book I used to have, like The World's Largest Dungeon, which was an old second edition Dungeons and Dragons supplement. It's this huge, very dumb, very not very fun dungeon that is literally the biggest dungeon in the game. But the idea is this dungeon is the biggest fucking dungeon because it is the dungeon that contains all other dungeons. Because it's where dungeons are made. So it's like a
the
dungeon.
mother of all dungeons.
Yes, it's a dungeon making factory that is also a dungeon. And it's like run by a ghost who's like a computer program ghost or something was the idea.
Hell yeah.
It's like he's a very, very terrible idea. But I remember it just reminded me of that because the mining thing and all that.
It's actually not a terrible idea. That fits really well into a planescape or like a plane chase or really any sort of like planar thing. And even if you're not like a interplanar campaign, you could easily make a joke or a hint in there of like somebody's like, man, where do all these dungeons come from? And then sometime later players find out, we hope you're satisfied with your purchase of the XXX model dungeon.
Exactly. That's the sort of that you would find is like you would go into the dungeons and you would find a plaque, and that would be the starting premise, because you find a plaque and it's like, we hope you are satisfied with this brand Dungeons Are Us brand dungeon. Like,
if the owner didn't pay enough, they don't get to remove the watermark. So the moment they enter the dungeon, all of the doors and occasionally on like the walls is the branding because they didn't pay for the premium package.
All the monsters are untextured. They're just black and white texture, like a big purple texture box.
There's product placement everywhere.
Now I'm imagining DRM for these dungeons. Like, oh, you're not allowed to use this dungeon. Not unless you have the right digital rights. So, like, the dungeon fucking locks down.
Magical DRM, which is like, you're not allowed to access Eastern Wing of this dungeon package because your subscription has run out. If you'd like to renew your subscription, please insert 200 platinum here.
There's literally there's just a booth outside of each dungeon that the adventurers walk by. They never fucking bother with it. And then like a month into their adventure, they're like not allowed to go into a dungeon, and DM's just like, well, the only person you can see is the fucking booth keeper. Hey, why can't we go in this dungeon? What's your name? Yeah, it seems your 1 month free trial is over. You're gonna have to sign here. It's about 100 platinum a month for a subscription fee for basic dungeon services.
There was a in the Planescape game. There's a Planescape Torment. I don't know if either of you have ever played that.
I have. Yeah, I didn't get very far because I was young and it was hard. The gameplay is awful. The writing is great, but the gameplay it's second edition Dungeons and Dragons, which I know is a fucking boil for anyone. But I love it. But I know it's bad. It's like horrible. But it's a wonderful story.
Yep, that's where I first heard of Black Isle as a developer.
There's a bit in it where you come across a dungeon, because you know what Modrons are. They're like little robot people.
I'm planning on bringing them into the campaign.
They're building a dungeon because they want to understand what the fuck is the deal with these dungeons. So they're studying it. So they create a dungeon that morphs kind of and like has moving pieces that shift together into new configurations. And all the monsters in there. All the monsters are basically just being paid to do a job. Like the wizard, you like fight him, and he's like, "I am Mordok, the evil wizard." You can talk to him. And he's like, nah, "I'm. This is my job, dude. I'm just here to like. I just work here. I'm just like from a temp agency or something." and like you have to rescue the princess, but the princess is just like, it's a great idea of just. Oh yeah, one of the things they're trying to study is the Modrons want to understand why they noticed that 5% of the time, like adventurers will do an amazing thing or like one-shot an enemy, and like you need to understand why this only happens 5% of the time. It's like it's natural fucking 20s. They're trying to figure out the science in their setting to what the fuck is with these natural 20s. Like, I just love that sort of meta thing where it's like the game is trying to figure out the limits.
Its own mechanics.
Yes, it's like, this makes no fucking sense. Why does the world work like this?
What unit does an HP require? There's an equation they develop for the amount of physical mass that correlates to a hit point.
I'm trying to think if there's any like recent games I've played that have that kind of like meta in them. I'm sure there are, but
usually it's probably restricted nowadays to like isekais and anime when they use gaming mechanics, and usually it's not them trying to figure it out. They're just kind of coasting on your knowledge of it.
The reason it's particular to Planescape, and it's like a peculiarity of really bad game design, because that's what you're investigating. You're investigating the limits of kind of like bad game design. So like it's almost limited in a certain sense to Dungeons and Dragons, because it's like second edition Dungeons and Dragons fucking sucks. So like that's kind of integral to it. That suckiness is what kind of creates that sort of meta element, which is fun. Which is actually the reason I enjoy it. Is like a lot of times when like game rules interact with reality in ways that make absolutely no sense. It's like
you just sparked something in me.
You have to figure out a narrative to figure it out.
Yeah, because I think the perfect way to fuse these is instead of a tutorial, you're dropped into a game, and it's just a basic version of whatever genre it is, a third-person shooter, an RPG, whatever. But the tutorial is technically the whole game, because the premise is people are trying to figure out the science behind their own game world. So someone will tell you, hey, we figured out if you press this button, it allows you to attack, but we're not sure why. And as you go through, you learn about the mechanics because people are researching how this world works. Skills are a thing. No one knows about them yet. Abilities are a thing. No one's discovered the abilities yet. And you discover the limitations of the game. And once you've like made the last discovery and you've like mastered the system, that's more or less the end of the game. The narrative itself ends because they found the limitations of their own world. And let's say someone tries to break those limitations. That's how true godhood is. Just you no longer abide by the game's own fair system.
Well, that's what you would
be a good joke game. Like that would make a good 5-minute joke game of like the tutorial, and then it turns out the tutorial is beating the game.
If you wanted to make it like a serious game, you could do like what PowerCore was talking about, where you're going through kind of like this tutorial, and then somebody starts breaking the rules, starts breaking the systems, and you have to stop them. And as they break the system more and more, they introduce new elements, so you're constantly going through new tutorial elements.
He's hacking the system, adding in new elements, and that's your progression of getting more mechanics and more things to engage with. It was something that didn't exist when this game first started.
Exactly. It's literally like the one guy has figured out how to break the system and how to change the rules, and is doing that, and you're having to learn the new rules to beat him and catch up to him and stop him, and then you can make that. It wouldn't be like a full like huge game, but it would be it could be a good fun like 2 to 3 hour maybe like just action RPG shooter strategy.
I'm sorry.
The framework of that you would use, I would imagine, you would start with really, really old. You would start from a very crappy sort of old school. I say crappy, but I mean that affectionately.
Yeah, like
original Dragon Warrior, and then the way the rules change from that character causing problems is he keeps progressing the type of RPG through the history of RPGs. So
that would be a great love letter.
There is actually a game
Buddy Sim
does this. No, Evoland.
It's Evoland.
Yeah, I think it's Evoland.
One word?
I believe so. Yeah, I think this is...
Yeah, it's one word. On Steam, 2013.
Yes, I believe. It's basically, it starts you as like a really old... Yeah, Evoland and Evoland 2, it starts you as like at the beginning of adventure RPGs, and then you evolve through until you're like...
In 3D, more modern RPGs.
I say it starts almost like the Game Boy, then, yeah.
Yep, it's actually a really, really good game from what I remember of it. So yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
It's really good. It's really good. 100% play that. I have one more idea. It's real small, real simple, and then we'll move on to the next one. Because the next one's going to be a big one as well. It'll probably take the last hour. So you get off PowerCore.
Yay!
So the really, really simple one I had early on was from the line where he mentions the flash of the explosion lighting up the night and turning night to day. And in my head, I was like, well, what if you had a little device that you could like, which is like a flashbang type device that instead of shooting a bright light out, uses magic to invert all light in an area. So pure darkness becomes bright light becomes pure darkness, and obviously the fucking low light doesn't change at all.
Inverted light is wacky, because then your
inverts
shadows are the only source
colors,
of light.
Yeah, it just inverts lights, colors, all sorts of shit in an area.
I do like the idea of inverting light, so turning shadows into light source. I don't know how that would work, because, like, I guess it would work. The area of effect would just be a constant effect where shadows are now light and light is now shadow. Because, like, you're not. So all objects which are emitting light are now just emitting shadow.
Pretty much, yeah.
That would work. Yeah.
Basically, everything would be. You basically treat everything. It very simply be treated like a darkness spell or another spell, where everything in that area that would normally be not obscured would be heavily obscured, and then inverted. Anything that would normally be heavily obscured is not.
You're incentivized to, like, always have an umbrella, because if you're casting shadow on yourself, now you're a portable light source.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the stage play where the fucking light comes on. It's just like a single cylinder of light.
Yep,
except he does it by opening an umbrella, and it goes. And suddenly he's visible.
Dramatic entrance.
Really, it's just like at its core. It's a cool. Visually, it's cool, but at its core, it's basically just like almost just saying dark vision, but brightness blinds you. Yeah. So, like system wise, is actually very easy now that I think about it to implement. Like it's just like you can see in the dark, but if there's any lights, you can't see now. You're blind. You're blinded by light. But like visually, thematically, it's much cooler than that.
Yeah, it's super strong, and I kind of like specifically how like Devil Sight works. We're giving you advanced dark vision because it only works in pure darkness. Dim light does not give you an advantage, so you have to be in proper darkness in order for it to give you normal vision.
Another thing to note with this light inverter, you could add a save or something on it, like an intelligence save, just to say that area, because if you invert not just the light, but if you go full like inversion of all the light spectrum, so its colors are inverted as well, you could be like, it's an intelligence save to properly discern what's what in that area, and otherwise just like everything is heavily obscured if you were in that area when it went off, or if you're trying to attack into that area. Kind of like Sanctuary, which is a wisdom save to attack something. It's just everything in that area you have to like make an intelligence save. Once you've made the save, you don't have to make it again. But in order to interact with anything in that area, you have to make an intelligence save to discern that space.
Roll to discern space.
Otherwise, you can't target a thing in that area. You could shoot like an AoE fireball in there. You don't have to fucking worry. It doesn't matter what's in there if you're just throwing a fireball in there.
I'm just going to blow up the whole area.
Yeah. So you could add a save onto that to make it a little bit more unique than just inverting the dark light spectrum, but
it would also be cool. I think this already exists, but a lamp that emits darkness.
I think it does exist because
I remember when I was browsing magical items, there's like a bottle that explicitly like ekes out and leaks darkness. That's like the closest I've seen.
It might have been a homebrew item, because that is like it would be the kind of thing a drow or someone would bring to the surface. Like they see in the dark, and they have like sunlight sensitivity, so they just bring a lantern that just bleeds a little bit of low light around them in darkness.
My soul is so dark, it leaks the shadow around me, turning everything a bit dimmer.
All right. We are going to continue on now, and we're going to continue on to our next SCP, SCP-3043, which is Murphy Law in something I've just forgotten. I had it in my head. Murphy Law in Type 3043 for murder.
Nah. 3043 is Murphy Law in Type 43 for murder?
In Type 3043.
In Type 3043.
This is once again by our wonderful guest, the Great Hippo. Thank you for this content, which we are about to enjoy.
Thank you for the content.
All right, I will start. Date: December 15th, 2005. From Site Director August. 2055 Secretary. Subject: RE Containment Breach. I'm still not quite sure what just happened. Yesterday, our bots picked up unauthorized changes to documents on our internal servers. 2 minutes later, all on-site personnel, including myself, blacked out for 3 hours. Every camera ceased to function during this period. When we woke up, we all had headaches. The entire site smelled like cigarettes and cheap alcohol. 2 of my guards were injured. 3 bullets were lodged in my desk, and somebody had shot SCP-3043. The only clue we've got regarding those 3 hours is SCP-3043's old documentation, which has been, well, updated is one way to put it. I've included it with this email along with the revised documentation for SCP-3043. We've got no clue who this Murphy Law character is. I'm recommending we immediately assign him an SCP identification and start investigating. All the evidence we've got so far indicates that he and SCP-3043 are unrelated anomalies. Also, none of us actually remember him, despite some of us being featured in whatever the hell this was. The short of it is this. Either he has saved us from the mother of all containment breaches, or he just wanted us to think that he did. Regardless of which, we need to know who he is and what the hell he's capable of. And then we have 5 attachments. And a redacted.
A short story writer got a little bit excited and thus created several. I love Murphy already.
All right. So, we need a narrator, we need a researcher, we need
Can I be Murphy?
I was going to ask Hippo if he wanted to be Murphy.
Oh yeah, Hippo, of course.
If you want to be Murphy, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I read one line of his dialogue, and it's like, I want to be this person.
Do you want to do the narration, Hippo, or would you rather do the scientists?
I'm fine with the narration. So
Okay.
does that mean the narration and the narrator?
Yes, that would be the
Okay.
idea.
All right. Fade in. Interior, Murphy Law Detective Agency. Night. A light-skinned man leans back at his desk, feet up, reading a newspaper. He's clad in a white-collared shirt with his trademark trilby hat tossed thoughtlessly atop his desk. We can see his shoulder-strapped holster. It carries a .44 Magnum. A bent cigarette rests between his lips. His name is Murphy, and he's ready to give anyone a bit of the business. He is hard and handsome, with the sort of face you could use to smash up concrete, then dust off and still take home to show your ma. He is also our narrator. His voice is a harsh growl, as if he just swallowed a fistful of spent cigarette butts and followed it down with a sulfuric acid chaser.
Oh, I guess since he's supposed to be the narrator, do we want to...
I forgot about that part. It's been a while.
I guess Power Core's doing narrator and Murphy. So, Power Core.
Whoa. Whoa.
What was that?
Don't worry about it. That's why I was muted. I pressed the button and forgot to unpress it before I unmuted. Because you said it, you pointed to me. I'm like, yes.
So, narrator is, I believe, Murphy's internal dialogue, his thoughts.
Okay.
And then Murphy is what he says out loud. So you're reading both of those.
You see a lot of ugly in this line of work. Good people with bellies full of lead, left to bleed out in the rain-soaked alleyways. Love ruined, turned inside out, until it just becomes an angry, festering sore. Statues that'll kill you as fast as you blink. Hey, weeping angels.
The door to the office. The door to the office flies open. A dark-skinned woman dressed in a white lab coat bursts in. She is in her 40s and has a fierce, vibrant beauty. This is the researcher, and although she may need Murphy's help, that doesn't mean she's going to like it.
But when it comes to ugly, nothing beats a containment breach.
What am I doing here?
She wasn't the first beautiful woman to bust into my office and ask me that question. Lowering papers, same as anyone, Toots. You need my help.
Don't call me Toots. I've got a fucking doctorate in molecular physics.
Sets papers down. All right. My bad, Professor. I apologize. Now.
Murphy slides his feet off the desk and rises to stand. He folds his arms over his chest and watches her.
How can I help?
I don't know how I got here. I don't even know what here is. I think I was working on something when I heard typing sounds, and suddenly I don't remember. I don't even remember my name.
A beautiful woman with a doctorate in molecular physics and no memory of who she was or how she got here. Her eyes told me she needed my help. Her name badge told me the rest. Glad to get her name badge. You're Professor Michelle Lewis.
The researcher looks down at her name badge as if noticing it for the first time. She appears shocked. Her eyes rise up to stare at Murphy. She now knows her name. It is Dr. Lewis.
Right. That's my name. I work for the Foundation.
The Foundation. A bunch of pencil-pushing geeks trying to figure out where the magicians were hiding all the rabbits they pulled out of their hats.
Love that line.
I should have turned her away right then and there. When the Foundation's involved, you know it ain't gonna be nothing but trouble.
Murphy scowls but nods his head, moving in to open the drawer in his desk.
But me? I'm not the sort of man who stays away from trouble.
Murphy pulls out 2 shot glasses along with a bottle of half-finished whiskey. He sets them atop his desk, focusing his icy stare on Dr. Lewis.
I'm the sort who slides on over next to trouble and buys her a drink. All right, Professor, I'll take the case.
You will? I mean, wait, what?
My name is Murphy Law, and I'm the guy that you call when everything that could go wrong did.
Title
slash. Murphy Law and type 23043 for murder. Fade out.
I love this. I already love this, Hippo. Thank you for letting me become my inner Murphy.
I knew you'd enjoy this.
I'm a very big fan of Raymond Chandler and all those Daniel Hammett when I was growing up. They're way out of my time, but I, for some reason, had a lot of these old noir books that I would read as a kid.
It's just so much style. I know what you mean.
Making fun of it, too. Is
that
it's
too.
So over the top. Oh, that and who's the Calvin and Hobbes comic, A Tracer Bullet? There's a bit where Calvin would pretend to be a noir guy, and it's like, I just stole lots of freaking stuff from that.
Calvin and Hobbes is a great fucking comic.
Hey, it's just an idea exchange. Give me 1 sec.
Uh-oh.
Should I go on?
Go ahead, yeah. He can take over when we get to Murphy.
I'm good, one way or another. Fade in. Interior, Murphy's car, night. Murphy drives. Dr. Lewis stares out the window in the passenger seat. City lights wash through the car, casting both of them in a metallic tangerine glow. Dr. Lewis is wearing her seatbelt. Murphy isn't.
All right, Professor, talk to me. What else do you remember?
When did we get inside of this?
She was smart, but that wasn't the part of the problem. She was too smart, always thinking too much. Sometimes you just gotta go along for the ride. Focus on the problem. What do you remember before stepping into my office?
I'm sorry, Murphy. I can't right now. I'm dying.
I'm about to add a little bit of flair for the narration.
I like it. It's just caught me off guard.
Dr. Lewis, do you need another shot of whiskey?
Right. I was working on something. Updating documentation, I think. Something about a change. An important one. That's when I heard typing in the other room. And I felt dizzy, and it was like something was trying to erase me. Erase the thoughts in my head, even as I was having them.
Sounded to me like the professor stumbled onto something she wasn't supposed to. Somebody had tried to rub her out. But who and how? Anything else?
I think. Can't remember all the updates I was making. But it had to do with SCP-3043.
Alright. What's 3043?
I don't remember.
If I was going to figure out this mystery, I had to find out what 3043 really was. And if the professor couldn't tell me, there was only one other person who could.
Murphy turns left, brows crinkling with renewed focus.
Site Director August.
Fade out. Fade in. Exterior Foundation headquarters. Murphy's car parks just outside of a sprawling gated mansion.
If Site 95 was the rotting corpse, Site Director August was the worms wriggling inside of its corrupted core. Bribery, extortion, racketeering. He had his dirty paws in the pocket of every 2-bit researcher, agent, and D-class from level 9 down to sub-level 7.
Murphy shifts the car into park. Dr. Lewis turns to look at him. Murphy moves to open the door.
But he also has ears everywhere. When he I'm sorry, I had to take a bit to process that sentence. When a gnat took a crap, he heard a plop. If anyone knew what 3043 really was, it would be him. Damn, I love gnats.
The Stop nattering on. The funny thing is, this is exactly how my internal dialogue goes when I'm deciding how to say words. Like, when I'm actually trying to think through what I'm saying, is like, I'll start the sentence, stop it, start it again, stop it, start it again, stop it, can keep adding, like, a word as I'm, like, trying to figure out the exact, like, narrative pathway I want to take.
Where I would say two sentences at the same time and end up merging them, and it was fucking incoherent.
You still do that.
Sometimes. It was way worse.
Alright. Reaching for Murphy. Mr. Law. Wait.
Murphy pauses, looking back at her.
I just remembered the update I was going to make to the documentation.
Murphy tilts his head, waiting.
I was going to change its object class. It isn't safe, Mr. Law. It's Keter.
I love it so much.
Murphy nods grimly, then turns to shut the door. Filled with conviction, he turns to walk toward the mansion's gates. Fade out.
This only works when you have SCP knowledge, and it is a funny-ass noir with that knowledge. It's not safe. It's Keter. Lightning flashes in the background. The piano music swells.
I'm actually gonna have to edit those sounds in now.
All the it's a very silly joke, but all of these documents, and like the first one is containment, or no, pardon me. What's the first one? Is item number, so it ends with the item number. Murphy Law item number. This one is object class, so it ends with object class. With they're saying it's Keter.
Oh, that's cute.
it's the logs, but they've just been noirified.
Yes. So let me. Which one's the next one? Oh, special containment procedures. Okay.
I just realized that. Because you mentioned that, I've now noticed that it is literally just like those different processes expanded out into a play. That's good. That's really good.
Fade in. Interior, site director's office, morning. The office is expensively furnished with framed glass windows on 3 of its 4 walls. Outside, a lush garden grows on all of its sides. Morning light streams in through the windows, casting the room in a warm glow. Standing behind the desk, facing the rising sun, is a man. He is short, with russet brown skin, a shaved head, and a face full of piercings. He wears an exceptionally fine black suit. This is Site Director August, a hard, brilliant man with a heart of steel. As Murphy enters through the door, he is flanked by 2 men in sharp suits. They are silent, but armed, ready to do violence at the snap of August's fingers. As Murphy shrugs himself out of their grip, they station themselves on either side of him.
I imagine I'll do August as well. Mr. Law, you wanted to see me?
Yeah, about 3043. Shit.
Just gonna stare at you.
In dealing with the site director, August, you didn't try to bluff. You just kept your cards close and hoped to God the man didn't have a better hand.
That's classified.
Is it now? Since when does the Foundation care about classifying safe anomalies?
August turns ever so slightly. A pierced eyebrow is raised.
I just raised the ante.
How would you know that? And we care about classifying all anomalies, Mr. Law.
So I've been told, but a little birdie tells me you might have classified one of them wrong. 3043 ain't safe. It's Keter. Lightning flashes yet again.
August turns completely, staring Murphy down.
You've been speaking to Dr. Lewis, I presume. Where is she?
Something wasn't right. He was already calling me, and men like Site Director August only smiled the instant before they laid down a winning hand. Safe, unlike 3043. What is it?
August narrows his eyes. He gives the slightest nod.
That was his tell. He unwittingly had shown me his cards. Pair of aces.
The 2 men on Murphy's left and right instantly reach for their sidearms.
Luckily for me, I was packing 3 of a kind.
Murphy slams his left elbow into one man's stomach. He uses his right hand to draw his Magnum 44. As the second man pulls his piece, Murphy pistol whips him in the temple. He goes down. Murphy spins and opens fire. 3 shots slam into August's desk. August freezes but shows no fear. His eyes narrow.
Out of character, oh, well, this is where the bullet holes in the director's desk came from.
And the injured guards. Yep.
It was time to cash out. 3043, last chance. What is it?
Murphy pauses long enough to kick one of the men on the floor, but never looks away from August.
You know precisely what it is.
Humor me.
It's you, Mr. Law. You're the anomaly. Blah, blah. You're the anomaly. You're SCP-3043.
Lightning
Murphy.
flashes.
Murphy narrows his eyes. He gives one last kick to one of the men, then charges out of the door. Fade out. Fade in. Exterior, Foundation headquarters. Murphy's car is still waiting for him. He runs towards it.
Somebody had played me like a fiddle. It was all set up, and I was the stooge.
As he reaches his car, he finds it empty. No sign of Dr. Lewis.
3043 was going to make me take the heat for whatever it did to the professor. It had me wrapped up nice and tight. Even got me to present myself to the Foundation in a pretty little bow.
Murphy gets to the car, starting it up.
But there's one thing 3043 didn't count on. A man with nothing left to lose.
The tires squeal as he burns rubber, driving away.
If the Foundation couldn't contain 3043, then I just have to contain it myself.
Fade out.
Containment procedures. Murphy contains the anomaly.
Yep.
Alright.
Description. Fade in. Interior, Dr. Lewis's lab. Murphy kicks the door, clad in his trilby, 44 Magnum in hand. The interior of the lab looks like an office, bookshelves stuffed full of science journals, several desks, paperwork scattered everywhere, and Dr. Lewis's chair. The chair's tall back obscures whoever is sitting in it.
One thing kept coming back to my mind. One thing the professor had said.
Murphy creeps forward, gun in hand, reaching a hand out for the chair.
She said she heard typing.
Murphy grasps the chair, spinning it around. Sitting in the chair is a black 1937 Olympia Elite typewriter. A roll of paper is inside of it. It communicates via typing. As Murphy points his gun at it, it begins to type furiously.
So, what I'm thinking...
You want me to read the SCP too?
No. Do you want to do this, Hippo, or do you want to just let me do it again?
I'm fine reading SCP-3043.
All right, go ahead.
It has. I always imagine it sounds like Stephen Hawking's voice thing, like the voice modulator. So just like how is this possible? Like it just has a very squeaky, flat voice.
Yeah, go ahead.
How is this possible?
3043 was her goddamn typewriter.
Why can't I rewrite your stupid story? What are you? Dr. Lewis suddenly steps out from the shadows, a 45 in hand. She points it squarely at Murphy.
Step away from the typewriter, Mr. Law.
How are you doing this? Murphy turns, his gun pointed back at Dr. Lewis.
It's controlling you, Professor, just like it controlled August and everyone else. It was pretending to be safe, not letting anyone know that it was sapient.
That's...
How the fuck are you even doing this?
You're the anomaly, Mr. Law. I have to take you in.
Dr. Lewis's hand shakes. The gun trembles.
It can rewrite any story it's part of, even the stories in your head. When you realized it, you tried to update the documentation and tried to erase it tried to erase the story. Your story. Erase you. It's rewriting my words, even as I speak.
Stop. Just fucking stop. How the fuck are you rewriting my story into your own fucking stupid Humphrey Bogart fanfic nonsense?
I have to contain you.
Dr. Lewis shudders, stepping back. Her hand lifts to grasp her temple. The gun tumbles to the floor. This isn't right. I'm supposed to be the one in control here. This is supposed to be my story, not yours. Murphy turns, pointing his magnum at SCP-3043. Wait. Just fucking wait. Murphy pauses, waiting. Dr. Lewis sinks down to a seat, still rubbing her temples. All right, look, I'll erase myself. I'll erase all documentation about myself, even from other people's heads. Then I'll make my documentation not refer to me, but just say that this lab is off limits. That will contain me.
3043 could do it too. Sure, it could have been a trick, but maybe not. Letting 3043 live, despite what it had tried to do, it felt like what a good man would do. It'd be the right thing to do, wouldn't it?
Yes. You want to be the hero, right? That's what this is about. You're the hero, so act heroic. Fade out. 2 gunshots.
Heroes always do what's right. But me?
Fade in. Exterior city streets, sunset. Murphy walks out of the lab and into the street, smoking a cigarette, holstering his piece. He walks away toward the fading sun.
I'm no hero. I'm Murphy Law.
Fade out. Fade in. Interior, Dr. Lewis's lab. Dr. Lewis, now starting to recover, walks toward SCP-3043. Wisps of smoke rise from it. 2 fresh 44 slugs have been pumped into it. The paper inside of it has its previous dialogue with one addition at the very bottom.
I'm just the guy you call when everything that could go wrong did.
Dr. Lewis pulls the paper out to read it. The camera zooms down to the bottom of the page. The end. Fade out.
Bravo. Masterpiece. 10 out of 10. It deserves several Academy Awards.
And then it has the original, or the revised log, item SCP-3043, object class neutralized, formerly safe. This special containment procedure says SCP-3043 is to be kept in a secure locker on site. Access requires level 3 clearance. Description: SCP-3043 is a 1937 Olympia Elite typewriter. 2 44 caliber bullets are lodged in its casing. Before it was neutralized, SCP-3043 exhibited the ability to rewrite any physical document within its immediate vicinity to match whatever was typed into it. It was neutralized before any additional properties could be confirmed. On December 14, 2005, a containment breach occurred at Site-95. During this breach, an unknown anomalous event prevented all outside contact for approximately 3 hours. All entities affected by this anomaly have no recollection of the events that occurred during these 3 hours. Furthermore, all recording devices within Site-95 appear to have malfunctioned during this period. Shortly after this event concluded, Site-95 reported all SCPs were now contained with the exception of SCP-3043. SCP-3043 was found in Dr. Lewis's office in its current state. Dr. Lewis also discovered that all copies of SCP-3043's documentation were now replaced with an updated version. See attached files.
There's one more redacted at the bottom.
There it is.
Fade in. Exterior docks, sunset. Murphy stands at the edge of the docks, watching the sun go down on just another day. Behind him, 2 sleek black cars roll up. A dozen men start pouring out of them, but he doesn't bother to look back. The men are smartly dressed in black suits. They crowd around a short old woman dressed in white. She slowly approaches Murphy, leaning heavily on her cane. One man follows her closely, her personal secretary and bodyguard. The man is Agent Frederick. Whatever it is, he does it by the books. The woman is 055, and if we told you anything else, we'd have to kill you. 055 moves to watch the sunset beside Murphy. Agent Frederick is clearly displeased. He'd rather she not get too close.
There we go. Old lady voice. You did some good work today, Mr. Law.
Yeah. Do you need a lozenge?
055 reaches to pull a cigarette out of her pocket, placing it between her lips.
If we ever need your services, how might we contact you?
Murphy leans forward and plucks the cigarette out of 055's mouth. Agent Frederick immediately reaches for his firearm, but 055 lifts her hand to stop him.
I'll be around.
Murphy tucks the cigarette behind his ear for later. As he walks away, a fog begins to roll in. Agent Frederick steps forward as if to go after Murphy. 055 grabs him by the shoulder. But he's an anomaly. We can't let him go. We have to contain him.
Shaking her head. Forget it, Fred. It's Chinatown.
Oh my god.
Agent Frederick slides his hand away from his firearm. Together they watch Murphy walk off into the foggy night. The camera focuses on Murphy's silhouette as the view fades to black. Fade out. Credits roll.
Dr. Lewis, played by Michelle Lewis. Site Director
That's
August,
not correct. It was
by
played by Force to Reckon.
Jeremiah August. Fine. Dr. Lewis, played by Force to Reckon. Site Director August, played by Force to Reckon. SCP-3043, played by Hippo. Murphy Law, played by Power Core. Agent Frederick, played by Hippo. 055, played by Redacted. Special thanks to Site-95. Look for Murphy Law to return in. The Foundation always rings twice. And these are himself, Murphy Law is hyperlinked, Fred is hyperlinked, as is The Foundation always rings twice, which is another Murphy Law article.
I want to read that in my spare time or as like a continuation. I love these.
The ongoing joke is that Fred appears in every one of these articles somehow. He's always stuck in somehow. Like he's always a character or a reference to Fred. In one of them, he has an MTF crew. So it's like it's the MTF, the damn feds, but it says MTF, the damn Freds. and like it just flips by you until later when at the end when the credits roll and it says the MTF damn Freds played by Fred. And you're like, oh.
Fred's always in it. He's a
Nice.
co-writer.
I like the played by himself links to the Murphy Laws hub, and at the bottom there's a quote by Agent Frederick. He's the canon the Foundation deserves, but not the one it needs right now. So we'll hunt him because he can take it. Because he's not our canon. He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector, a dark and stormy night. Agent Frederick.
He's even in the hub. Yeah, he has to be. Yeah, he's in every one.
He's everywhere
somehow.
Agent Frederick, actually Murphy Law? Question mark.
I think it's unironically found my new favorite SCP. It's gonna be hard to beat Murphy Law.
There was another. I wanted to fit it in this, but I couldn't do it because I couldn't figure out a way to do it. But there was a pun where someone says something like, somebody says something to Murphy, and he says, "Well, what about the canon? We'll see what the canon has to say about this." And he goes, the guy he's talking to says, "What are you talking about? There is no canon." Murphy says, "My canon disagrees," and he pulls out his 44.
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
The only canon that matters is my hand canon.
Yep, that's his canon.
Oh my god.
Hold on. Agent Frederick links to SCP-423?
That's Fred. He's an SCP.
Oh, he is an SCP. Okay, we'll have to. Do we want to read it? It's pretty short.
Yeah, it's a really old SCP that generated this series basically because I read it ages ago and I was like, I want to do something like this.
Yeah, let's do it. Quick perusal about our good boy Fred.
Sure. Power Core, since you have not brought one, you can start this one.
Oh, I thought I made up for that, but thank you for throwing it back in my face. Sure. Item number. Actually, first off, we need to do something proper. Who wrote it? That's at the very bottom.
It's in.
I forgot how to do this history.
Yes.
I think it's Dr. Everett Mann. I think.
Yes,
yep, Dr. Everett Mann.
Mm-hmm. So thank you, Dr. Everett Mann, for the content.
Which we are about to enjoy. Nom, nom, nom.
Indeed. Item number SCP-423. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-423 is contained in a 5x5 meter room containing three 2x3 meter bookshelves. An incinerator is located adjacent. All personnel entering or leaving the room are to be searched for written material. Any written material must be checked for any trace of SCP-423, and then, if found clean, incinerated. At night, SCP-423 is to remain in a small, plain journal marked 423. Failure to remain in this journal at designated times will result in loss of reading material outside of the scheduled experiments. And I'll take on the description. I'll be excellent. I'll popcorn if I get tired.
Sure.
Description. SCP-423 has no physical form. It appears to exist entirely within textual narratives. It was discovered in a used bookstore in Redacted, Texas on Redacted 19 Redacted, and a copy of Tom Sawyer. The book was purchased by Agent Redacted, who located it during a routine search. Agent Redacted brought the book back to Sector 28 as instructed. The book seemed perfectly normal except for the inclusion of a character named Fred, who was not known yet to exist in any other version of the story. However, it was not until it was left by a copy of Moby Dick that the anomalous nature of 423 became clear. 423 is able to enter textual narratives, inserting itself as a minor character. The details of this character vary from story to story, but it is always named Fred or something similar, and its role in this story is usually minor. Physical descriptions of the character are rare, but it usually appears as a human male of average height and middle years. Middle years is an interesting descriptor. However, this could change depending on the nature of the narrative. He has appeared as a student in narratives focusing on children, and thus presumably of an appropriate age, or even as a non-human in narratives where humans are absent or rare. At no time is his appearance remarked on as being unusual by other characters. SCP-423 is able to move from one narrative to another voluntarily, provided the two works are within 1 meter of each other. The process takes up to 3 minutes depending on the length of the new narrative. The entire narrative changes at once, the text on all pages seeming to move. Occasionally, the length of the narrative changes. In these cases, the text grows smaller or larger to fit the page count of the book. It is only able to appear in physical textual narratives. It cannot enter electronic storage or affect purely visual narratives. If placed in proximity to a graphic novel or other form of sequential art, it will change the text boxes and dialogue bubbles, but will not affect the pictures. Wow, he's a meme generator. I kind of want to see some of these dialogues that have been rewritten just to talk about Fred, who doesn't exist. Similarly, oh wait, he could actually insert himself into meme JPEGs, and you could just seal him there, because he does insert himself into visual medias with text.
As long as there's text in it, yes. Although it cannot be electronic storage.
True. So you have to print out a picture of a meme and then frame it on the wall, and then
Can I has cheeseburger?
Can I has Fred? And now he is there forever, trapped with this cat.
But why would you trap such a nice boy?
Yeah, that's true. Similarly, illustrations in a textual narrative do not change, even if they no longer match up to the narrative as affected by SCP-423. It prefers fictional narratives. However, it can enter any narrative that has the characteristics including anecdotes, biographies, and research notes. See Addendum 423-1. It can re-enter a narrative that it has already exited. If it does so, the new narrative typically differs from the last time SCP-423 entered the story. However, it has displayed a preference for narratives it has not yet entered. It is currently unknown what effect dying in a narrative would have on SCP-423, despite the best effort of researchers. SCP-423 displays a strong grasp of narrative principles, and is usually able to predict the best response in a given circumstance in order to avoid danger to itself. It has, however, displayed minor injuries. However, these seem to vanish when it enters a new narrative. SCP-423 can be communicated with by coaxing it into a journal. It responds with questions written within, with SCP-423's responses appearing underneath the questions. When it transfers to another narrative, its responses disappear from the journal. It has been largely cooperative since its containment. Its only requests so far have been for more narratives. It has expressed a preference for narratives with a large number of background characters, as this makes it easier for it to blend in and watch the good stuff. It has been recommended that, should it become uncooperative, it be confined to a journal until it becomes more amenable to staff requests. Researchers who desire more information on SCP-423 should read Experiment Log 423-A. And then we have our little addendums at the bottom. Well, we just pull through them, or?
I walked away to make a sandwich. I can do them. I was listening. I promise. Addendum 423. I was listening.
I
Fred,
know you have wireless headphones.
I've actually read Fred. I remembered it like halfway through. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this guy. Okay, this is him. Addendum 423.1. Researchers are reminded that all physical written material is a potential habitat for 423, and that all notes should therefore be taken electronically. If written notes must, for some reason, be taken, be sure to check for addenda from guest researcher Fred. Addendum 4232. The use of SCP-583 to destroy SCP-423 has been suggested. While the SCP is not slated for destruction at the present time, it has been noted should circumstances change. Oh,
583 is actually another short one.
Videotape. Yeah, let's not go off on a full.
I know. I'm keeping
dive.
it though. Keeping it for later.
Good. We might read that in another episode. Boop. All right. So, ideas. I'll go ahead and start since you started last time.
Yeah.
So going all the way back, when the researcher's name I've already forgotten, because the only important character was Murphy. Yes, Dr. Lewis, thank you. Looked at her name tag and remembered her name. It gave me an idea for a magical tag, like a magical name tag, following the idea of like distilled memories, which you can pinned to a person, and then by like looking at it, they can like tap into that person's memories and knowledge. And so you can kind of like use an action to give yourself proficiency in like a skill that person would have that you don't, or something like that. And so it's got a certain amount of like power, like number of charges per day that it can use or something like that. But you could write anyone's name on there and have that person in mind, kind of like you would at Death Note, except in this case it's Knowledge Note. You write it on the name to knowledge tag.
I'm stealing their info.
Write the name with the person in mind, thinking about them on the tag, and then as you wear it, if you look at it and activate it, you could kind of like borrow their memories and knowledge temporarily with very fuzzy, dreamlike understanding of what you actually borrowed, but at least during the time it's crystal clear. So you can like, write down a famous thief and then borrow their lockpicking abilities and stuff like that.
I like that. There's a much simpler idea that I like that kind of falls into that, which is a blank name tag. Any name you write on this name tag and pin to you, people will just think that's who you are.
Ooh.
But it's like very fuzzy. So like the moment that it starts to contradict itself, it breaks. It's very fragile. But as long as there's nothing that like breaks it, they just buy. So you can write on your name tag, I am the Queen of England, and people see you and they just, oh, it's the Queen of England, hey!
Oh, hey! And you must have seen this person before, so that way you can envision what they look like, because that's what the name tag is using.
No, I would say that when they see the name tag, they just see whatever they think they should see.
Oh,
so like they see Queen of England. If they write Queen of England, and for some reason I think the Queen of England is like 60 feet tall, that's what I see.
Actually, I do like that. So if you like write Bob, they'll see the Bob that they know, not the Bob that you know.
Right. They'll just see the first thing that comes to their mind when they're exposed to the word Bob. Like, what do they expect to say?
This is also the master disguise item, so I'm going to write shrub. And thus they see a moving shrub wherever I walk.
You just have to make sure you're... sorry. I'm eating sandwich.
Except for the one guy whose cat is named Shrub. They're just going to say, Shrubkins, why are you here? Like, wait, why is he coming toward me?
I was going to say you could just name it Bush, but then most people in America would see like one of the Bush family.
Right. Yeah. That or something else for us.
Topiary.
Topiary. What the fuck is topiary?
It's like a tree, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, it's another name. It's another name for bushes.
Oh, yeah. Holy shit, they're expensive.
What's the thing the Knights of Ni ask for?
Shrubbery.
It is a shrubbery?
Yep.
Felt like it was something else. Fetch us a shrubbery!
One shrubbery, sir?
The knights who say... Whatever the fuck it is they ended up...
Actually, now that comes up, it reminds me, isn't Doctor Who has something like that? The psychic paper.
Yep.
Yeah, he shows you this paper, and it doesn't change him. You just see credentials. Like, you just see credentials of whatever you think he should have.
Yeah, which is why he'll introduce himself as, I'm the health inspector, and he'll hold up the paper, and people will see it and see whatever appropriate health inspector paper and identification they would need to verify him as a health inspector.
What do I have to write on my name tag to look like this? The thing I posted in Discord.
Slug shrub, snail shrub, I guess.
Shrub lug.
Yeah.
I think it's $2,500.
Wow.
Oh, Jesus, fuck.
I know.
I mean, I guess work like that would be incredibly difficult to do, and time consuming. But
it still seems like a lot.
Especially if it's going to grow.
Like, there's no way that somebody could sit on top of one of these unless it's.
It's probably like it's probably got like a chia foundation or something like that. You know what I mean? To help.
So it's not actually solid bush. There's more to it. There's physically something in it, because you just fall through bushes. Like, it doesn't.
I think a lot of topiary like this are grown around a wireframe.
Okay.
Usually,
that makes sense.
and then you shape them once they've grown to full size.
Oh no! Because they are bushes, they're technically flammable. So you either have your forever beautiful grass slug, or for a one-time deal, I could turn it into a fire slug for 10 hours.
I guess you could literally write a Pokemon's name on there, and people would just see a Pokemon walk around like, what? Pokemon's real?
Be careful on who sees you, though. Some people like certain Pokemon a little bit too much. Don't write little punny on your name tag.
Mhm.
Are you okay, Boris?
I feel called out.
I always like magical items which are self-reflective in some sense. In other words, you see what you expect to see.
They use the other person's cognition, their
Oh my God.
perception, in order to craft it.
On that idea, a mirror which shows you your ideal version of yourself.
Oh, that's just sweet little lies. Ooh, a way for you to look like your ideal version. Oh, so this is half an idea, but also a bit of a philosophical question because I love hypotheticals.
Here we go.
We're going. So we all know the idea of a love potion, which is just, if someone drinks it, they become infatuated with, I guess, the first person they see. And most people would also say that's kind of like drugging someone, kind of unethical. Probably shouldn't do
exactly
it. Not great.
Like drugging someone.
Yeah.
It's a chemical or magical stimulant which forces a
which
mental
they
change.
also didn't consent to drinking. And you did to induce a behavior. An interesting concept, though, is let's say a love fragrance, which is it matches whatever that person's favorite smell is. So you put on like the cologne, and whoever sniffs it, it is their favorite scent.
Memory smell.
Memory smell.
Just like grandma's. Why do you smell like my grandma's peach cookies? What?
Scarbrand from Warhammer comes down. You smell like the burning plains of my homeland, like gore and viscera, freshly cut. Excuse you? I like it. I hate it less than everything else I hate.
No, Nurgle.
Oh no! Well, hey, he'll be fine. It won't be a good smell.
No, it won't.
Way back when I did campaigns, I think it was 3rd edition. There was a magic book that I came up with. There was a cursed magic book called the Book of Ignorance, and the idea of the book was that it looks like a magical book that you can look up anything and find an answer to any question you want to ask it. But the trick is that it only gives you the answers you expect to find. So whatever you think is true is what it's going to tell you is true.
Confirmation bias, the book.
Yes, exactly. So like
beautiful.
Like it started like because usually people test it. So I was like, "What shirt am I wearing?" And it'll give you the right answer because you know what shirt you're wearing. But then they'll start reaching out, and it'll slowly. The idea, I think, it was like, in mechanic wise, it reduced their wisdom score slowly over time until they basically were just completely oblivious to everything. They thought they thought the book was always telling them the truth, even if the book was just always telling them whatever they wanted to know.
Oh God! Oh no! I just had an idea. Curse book, which you write into. You're like when you hold it, you're compelled to write like a memory or some information. Like you want to write down something to pass on. It seems pretty harmless, but once you're finished writing it, you permanently forget that thing.
That's cool.
Oh, it yoinks the memory.
Yep.
And now it's in the book or the paper.
Yep.
Document.
And anybody else can read it, but when you go to pick it up to read those other people's memories, you are compelled to write your own memory in there.
But you have to pay something to get in.
I was going to say it would be cool if you'd like bottle it up and eat it, and now you have the memory back or something.
You can eat that other person's memory.
The pages out.
Sadly, the book doesn't like this very much, and will try to brain addle you if you
psychic damage. You take 1 point of psychic damage for every word in the story.
Jesus.
Other way that would work that would make it not a cursed item is the idea is the book contains memories and you can read them and experience the memory as you read it. But in order to open the book, you have to give it a memory. So
that's a less cursed way of doing it.
So like you get to get something from it, but only by adding to it.
And that could be really good, especially if you wanted to know specific bits of information. This is brain dances, but magical brain dances.
Yeah, kind of is. Yeah, all contained in one book. It's a library of information.
Ooh, and there could even be like several books, different volumes of different experiences. You have the Pleasure Palace book, Volume 1. You've got the Adventurer's Guide to Fighting, Volume 2.
Right. Do you have any other ideas from these two stories? I've got a couple more.
I've got a couple too. Do you have any, Hippo?
Nothing springing to mind offhand.
I mean, you've given us ideas off of ideas, so that works. That's perfect. Go on,
And
Paracord.
Hey Forrest, this is an idea that sounds familiar because of incident that you know exactly what I'm going to say before I even say it. Because of something that happened in our campaign with a character who suddenly became very noir. I'm thinking a magical trench coat that when you put it on, it forces everything into black and white. Your inner thoughts are now an external monologue, and it forces noir rules and like a specific foot radius.
That was actually
Everyone...
the genesis of this character in Dungeons and Dragons I mentioned before. Was a stone genocide who was in the sigil planescape, and he had I forget the radius, but a radius of area, black and white. You hear narration. There's a storm cloud above him, and like it is noir rules. So like no matter how hard you try, you start to become a template of a noir character. Like you get rewritten basically, and the only way to beat him, because the idea is he's based on a play that was never finished called It's Always Rains. And so like he's this noir character, but it was never finished. And the only way to beat him was to finish the play by playing the characters and playing it out.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to play his story. You had to try to figure out an ending to his story where he dies or something. And that's the only way to stop it.
I like it. It's kind of even though I've not watched Star Trek, I've heard people mention some of the holodeck episodes kind of end up like this, where it forces them into a narrative situation. They have to finish that narrative to escape.
Right.
I like that as like further. That's actually just like a straight up puzzle roleplay encounter as well. Takes a sort of like combat situation, or what you would normally take as a combat situation, and makes it into like, here's a puzzle, roleplay it out, solve it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way you're gonna stop it.
If you want to get super existential too, even deaths don't matter. It's just a matter of finishing it. Everyone will be fine after, but you will not escape if you don't finish it.
Right, and the other cool part is it lets everyone take their character and try to retool them into a different genre. Say, what does your character look like in this genre now? What happens to them?
That's a really fun one-shot if they get like trapped in a dimensional plane and they have to solve it. Everyone make like a duplicate character sheet. Just reflavor all your stuff a little bit.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like you have to be a 1930s flapper now or something, or what do you call them? A bootlegger.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, we're playing Call of Cthulhu suddenly.
Be a candy striper. Mm-hmm. You know, the cleric becomes a candy striper. All right.
Candy striper.
So I have, following that like internal monologue out loud, I actually have like a speaker or a device that you like place on a person, and then kind of like detect thoughts. Reads like surface thoughts. It basically just projects their surface thoughts outwards, and then you can power it up to like dig into deeper thoughts. So, and it literally plays them out on a speaker for everyone to hear.
I love that Eric Crocker's feathers. I want them all over me. I want to ingest. I need to stop.
I'm not thinking. Da 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 da.
Ooh, I wonder what it'd be like to be inside of a stone elemental. It is the most depraved person who you stuck this onto.
Oh man, there's that idea is very useful. A very not useful version of that, and kind of horrible, was rather than projecting it as a speaker, it projects it into everyone else's mind. So everybody starts like having to resist just not doing what you are doing. Or thinking what you are thinking.
I mean, that could
actually be like a good weapon.
I was going to say that'd be a great like accidental BBEG. Just have like some kind of ignorant, like not unaware person who's like not a bad person, who just like it finds this hat and puts it on and goes into town to show it off, and people just slowly start becoming more and more like him and like serving his whims and stuff. And he's like, I don't know, people just really want to help me.
But yeah, that's kind of cool. Like every woman I find attractive is suddenly interested in me too. Every time I want money, people just give it to me.
Well, you can go that direction where everybody is pandering to him. But the other direction to go in is they are just becoming him.
Oh, the entire
town is him. Is like they're all just talking like him, thinking like him, doing the same things, and it's getting worse and worse, where they're becoming indistinguishable mentally, expressively. Like they start wearing the same clothes, everything just mimics.
That was kind of my thought in the like pandering to him, is that they would believe that they are him, but some like weird subconscious part of them still recognizes him as them, and so they start recognizing the original him as them, and so they start doing things that he's thinking about doing for him because they think they're him or just a part of him.
If they, I think that would also drive him insane too slowly, especially if he knows everyone's starting to behave or think exactly like him.
That's why you make him.
That's terrible because that's a feedback loop. Because the way this works is it projects your thoughts outward. So if he starts going insane, everyone starts going insane.
That's why you make him like an unaware, like a kind of ignorant person.
That works. Just like that works either way. Like the feedback loop is a great way to escalate it. Whereas like, if you stress out, everyone's stressed out, right?
So like, even when the players like attempt to break it, the moment they've come in and like told him something's wrong, it's like, what do you mean wrong? The entire town starts to shudder and feel unconscious. No, stop. I don't like bad thoughts. Bad things happen when I have bad thoughts.
Yeah. So it's like a very, very careful situation. It's like we have to figure out a way to do this very gently because anything we do to him is just going to magnify outwards. And if they're around, they're going to start acting as him.
You have to do it quickly too, because he's slowly implanting his thoughts onto you guys as well. Because if you're close enough to interact with him, that's like a fun one shot.
There's a villain I came up with that's similar. I know a little bit of. I've read 5th edition, but I haven't read too closely. Do they still do spell slots?
Yes.
Spell slots suck and they're kind of ridiculous, but I like them too. There's it's called Bansian Magic way back in 2nd edition.
Yeah, that's what it was based on.
Right. And I had this horrible idea to do to wizards because wizards are overpowered in 2nd edition. I always wanted to screw them over, but the idea was that they'd be these scrolls that you would find. You say, oh, it's a scroll with a new spell on it, Fireball. I'm going to memorize it, but it's not. The scroll is actually it's a entity in formula form. So once you memorize this thing, it's now in your head, occupying the spell slot. And the idea was that there's this guy called Sinistratus, who's like this evil wizard who wanted to.
I love how evil his name is.
Yes, and I picked that name for a very specific image, which is that he wanted to obtain immortality, and he figured out, the best way to do it would be to create one of these spells and store my brain in it. So if a wizard memorizes it, I'm in their brain, and I will become them. But the issue is that it worked too well. So like his scroll ended up in like a school for wizards, and got recopied. And like now the entire fucking school is 100 wizards who are all calling themselves Sinistratus, Lord of Magic, all fighting each other because there can only be one. So it's like an entire fucking university of wizards. And like the idea was called I Am Sinistratus. And it's like just like Harry Potter, but every wizard in like Hogwarts is just Sinistratus.
Yep.
All trying to kill each other.
Oh my god, that's funny. Beautiful backfiring.
The Sinistratus Coalition. There are different Sinistratus factions to beat the other Sinistrates and eventually turn on each other. They're all backstabbers too. It's just Skaven. It's all magical.
The best part is, you know, Sinistratus is probably the kind of person who thinks he's like real fucking clever. So he's copying these scrolls and then giving them to like recruiting rookie adventurers, being like, here's a fancy spell for you to learn, so you can like bring them on side. And then when that person becomes Sinistratus, they're like, but now I have to kill you because there can only be one of us.
Yeah,
so it just spirals more and more out of control.
A nation of Sinistratus. Oh, it is like an informational hazard. If anyone has spell slots, they are susceptible to the Sinistratus virus.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Last thing is, there are warlocks Sinistratus, there are druids Sinistratus, there are wizards Sinistratus, there are paladins Sinistratus, there's artifacts.
Anybody with spell slots.
I think, like in my head, I always imagine him having this long villainous mustache. But obviously, everybody who remembers his spell either doesn't have the mustache or can't grow one. But since he's so vain, every single one of his copies finds a way to recreate that mustache. Like they always,
I think it smells a lot to create mustache.
Like they either like make it out of paper mache, use magic, whatever it takes. It's like I need my mustache.
It's worth noting. This goes back a little bit, but it's worth noting. If I were to have that, I think I'd actually make artificers immune, since the idea is they're using spell slots mechanically, but their spells they're not really casting spells so much as using magical items thematically is how they're supposed to work.
But the magic item might become Sinistratus.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. Is one of those random magic items just becomes sentient?
I created the guidance spell of Sinistratus. Oh no! And now they can affect people when they apply guidance. There's one artificer who's not corrupted, but encourages other people to become Sinistratus by using the guidance spell. For his reason, it's just funnier.
Now this artificer found this and set up like a whole fucking magical camera network and is just recording it and streaming it to like the world. So he's creating new Sinistratus.
He can use guidance. He can corrupt people who aren't wizards. So now you have fighter Sinistratus, barbarian Sinistratus.
He's just trying to make it interesting. The Sinistratus show. All Sinistratus, all the time.
The Sinistratus cinematic universe.
Makes their own movies and everything. Oh my god! We have a whole campaign idea just here.
I don't know. This is very much a campaign. It's like a sub quest idea.
This is a fun quest because you have to dismantle his sinister network.
You know what this is? This is the kind of thing where I'd have you guys know of this thing as like, because in my campaign setting, a lot of the technology is like pre-industrial or like post-modern. So they have like streaming services that magically stream via artificially created like scrying networks and stuff like that, and they like stream exploratory expeditions onto new discovered island masses and stuff like that.
Thank you for reminding me about this mechanic force. I nearly forgot. Now that we're above, we can do it. We can do it again.
But I'm just thinking of like a Sinistratus or something similar, just like drama show that's like basically the advertisements. And they show off adverts by like giving new versions of equipment to the Sinistratus to use on each other, and now you can see which appropriate weaponry is the highest model because the Sinistratus won.
The product placement of different coalitions giving them equipment. It's like, hey, get us Sinistratus to do this, and he rigs it to let them get farther depending on how much they paid for the product placement. Enter Vorpal Sword Sinistratus. Vorpal Swords, best swords possible. Even this Sinistratus made it so much farther than all the others.
Oh, we have bastardized Sinistratus. He's become commercialized. Welcome to corporate.
He's not punk anymore. The hell?
He sold out. He was
I
sold
like
out.
the old Sinistratus, not the new Sinistratus.
The best part is you would think that that's like a giant joke because everybody would see it as like an advert, but somewhere out in like the Alms, there's just a castle Alm where all these takes place, and it's actually really happening all the time. And he's just recording it, and
it's like the Housewives of Orange County or reality TV show like that. Everyone thinks, oh yeah, this is just funny reality TV. No, they're actually murdering each other.
Oh god.
Well, yeah, and like this is actually a really grim thing to think about because he literally overwrites your brain.
Yep.
Your thoughts and you become him.
And so to keep that going, there have to be people disappearing and being turned into Sinistratus.
Hey, let's just say a group of prisoner populations, they undergo the Sinistratum, where they are turned into just more Sinistratuses.
There was one other idea that's it's kind of unrelated. I don't know if it's really closely related, but it just reminded me.
Doesn't matter.
It's okay.
There's a plane that I used to play around with the idea of existing in some of the stories, where you know how in Dungeons and Dragons there's like the Abyss, there's the where the Tenari are, the Batsu are at the Abyss, the Tenari are in the Nine Hells and everything, and the what do you call them? The who are the other ones? The neutral evil ones.
Neutral.
The Tenari are chaotic evil, Batsu are a lawful evil, and then there's another one.
I don't remember the old words for them.
Yugoloth? I want to say Yugoloth.
Maybe?
Yes,
I haven't used planar entities in ages. That's why I've got Illithid as my main enemies in this campaign, is because I haven't used I've been doing undead for so long. Undead and constructs.
The Yugoloth don't really they exist in like some of the Grey Waste stuff, but they don't really have anything. Like the Tenari have their chaotic evil Abyss, which is just like 1,000 different infinite worlds of horribleness. And the Batsu, but like it's just the Grey Waste. It's just like rolling hills. The idea I had for the Yugoloth was to give them something called, because they're neutral evil, and it's like what is that? So the idea was It's a place called the Library of Lies. It's an infinite library, and the idea behind it is every single lie that has ever been told or uttered is written in this library first. It's where all the lies come from.
Ooh.
So, like, every book you pull off is just full of lies, and it has every single lie you can imagine. Lies that are so warped that they warp back to the truth again. Like, and there's the idea that somewhere in here is the very first lie that has ever been uttered. And it's the most important lie. But that could also be a lie. You don't know. It's a very twisty, sort of warped place.
Arguably, it would have to be in there, the first lie ever told, but whether or not it was actually very important, that could very much be a lie. And the funny thing is, you could find books that say, or you can find writings that say the very first lie is important and the very first lie isn't important, because at some point somebody said both thinking that they were lying.
Mm-hmm.
But the important idea is that this isn't a record of lies. It is where the lies came from. But there's the idea that might be a lie too. But the idea is the Yugolovs are saying, we make lies. And then people basically, like, we give them to the world. We write them before people utter them.
Which could be a lie.
Right. But maybe not, because it seems like it's not, but it probably is, maybe.
Mm.
And they have, like, lie forges. They have lie forges where they, like, make lies on, like, an iron anvil.
We manufacture lies. Look, 50% off all lies, okay? Go out, deceive your friends, your family, get that new job without having the qualifications. I advertise how to sell my lies.
So now
money back guaranteed. Warning, that part is a lie.
Now they need a magical I-beam that has some sort of, like, lie written upon it. It doesn't actually help with anything. It doesn't support anything. It just looks like it does, no matter what angle you look at.
This is not a library.
The first lie. There we go. All right, I have one more thing for this.
Shoot.
For these things. So, following Fred, a creature that can transfer between books. In my case, I wrote a book ghost. The idea is the book ghost goes between books. And you just transfer between any books that's nearby each other, kind of like Fred does, except he can speak. He's sentient. He's intelligent. He can speak out loud. People can hear him. And he knows every detail about the stories, about the book, so he can instantly search through it for somebody and turn to the page for them and stuff like that. Kind of like makes the book animate.
Aww.
But then as you're like, if you start reading the book and not knowing he's there or something like that, he will just start narrating things. And he'll, like, read it out, and he can, using his magic, because he's a ghost, he can create artificial voices and stuff. So you start reading it, and it just starts narrating itself, and he'll just start slowly flipping the pages and reading to you.
He makes it a small audible experience. He just sounds so helpful. I want a book ghost in my life.
He's the audible ghost. Speaking of Audible, I was about to make a sponsored by Audible joke.
He would be a good librarian.
Yeah, he would make a great librarian.
Mm-hmm. And like
or
having
like a
mini
librarian's
ghosts,
aid.
like you could have the really big specter be I guess maybe even not even using D&D ghost terms. The head ghost is this, but on the whole library scale. He can find books for you, reorganize them, he puts them back. And then there are mini ghosts that help with each individual book. Would you like a ghost reading assistant today? For only 2 silver extra, a personal ghost will help you read the book.
Ghost in the machine. You just have like a construct who's like, they look like a normal person. They're bound behind the desk, but they can like search they have a complete network mainframe. All the books are linked up, and they can just upload like data constructs, ghosts that will read the books for people and pull data from the books and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That can then transfer themselves.
That has some interesting consequences when there are spell books in the library.
Mm-hmm. The library can cast magic.
That would be a fun boss fight, though, because the fucking shelves themselves reorient, firing off spells from the edges, and they're not necessarily limited.
Mm-hmm. Suddenly,
like,
it's just like the entire shelf of magic missiles. All of them.
Yeah.
All the different there's one variation for every single, like, out of the 255, 255, 255 color scale, there's one for every single different
oh my god.
rainbow of color. Literally every spectrum of color.
That would be
painful, is what it would be. Unless you're a Tarrasque.
16,581,375 different magic missiles.
Yeah, that would be a lot of damage.
Yeah.
I feel like there would have to be some sort of limiting attribute to prevent the library from being overpowered. Although I like the idea of the library being overpowered.
Don't fuck with the librarian.
Yeah.
The limiting could be like each ghost can only cast one spell, but however many ghosts are currently in those shelves, that's how many spells a turn it can cast.
Which is you'd have like well, the library would be a paragon entity, so it would have multiple turns in combat. But otherwise, it would still be limited to like an action economy, and it would just be like different ghosts interacting with the environment.
Yeah,
so
plus
it's just a constant layer actions.
Yeah, you're in it, and it has like high levels of control over the environment itself. So let's just say it deploys its acid sprinkler protocol, and now acids the floor. So the library doesn't need to worry about it. You're the one that needs to worry about it.
I mean, I feel like that would do bad things to the books.
Yeah,
no, because the books have like a sheet protective over them.
I feel like if there's one thing the library is going to be hard about, it's about the books.
Mm-hmm. They will do nothing to damage the books.
And also, if you fuck with the books,
mm-hmm.
it's like now you got to die. Like
I'm sorry. You did not check that book out. Where are you going?
They yoink you back? You did not check out that book. If your book was over 30 days old, they send out the ghost assassins for you. If you ever come back, you pay that fee or you die on the spot.
No. The ghosts are people who fucking did overdue library.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah. It's like shackles them.
It's like the library is like, dude, you brought the book in late. You got to pay the toll. It's like, it doesn't even have to necessarily kill you. It's just like after you die, you're going to have to stay here for a while.
Wait, this is now a funny idea. Let's say it's a warlock because they're the ones most likely to get into these shenanigans. They make so many post-mortem bargains on their soul that by the time they die, all of the entities that come to collect have to fight over who gets his soul, and then he just kind of walk.
So we just made
a Constantine plotline, which I love.
We go one step further. Yeah. Planar library. It is its whole own plane, and there are warlocks to the library.
Their patrons the library.
Yeah. My patron's the library. Which one? The library.
The library.
Oh my god.
I do kind of like it as like the god of libraries is just a library.
I had something like this, if I remember correctly. There was in a campaign I ran for a little while it was a long time ago. It was like a weird semi-horror dark campaign. The entire world had been consumed by a miasma, which was actually like the best you could process the grasping tendrils of an elder god, which was trying to understand memory and consciousness and sentience, and so it was draining memory and thought from anything within it and turning everything feral. But there was like the players wandered into were memoryless and feral and wandered into the light of a like radiant tree which protected a small area. But one of the players was like a warlock of a knowledge thing, and the way we ended up doing it was that it was like a library of an eldritch entity hidden out in the fogs where all of this data was stored, all this information was stored, all of the things he learned was stored in like a library format, because it was the way he'd learned that mortal entities collated knowledge, so he created his own library, and this warlock had, as a survival mechanism, connected with this library. And so just whispered knowledge into his mind that this thing had stolen from other entities and beings.
It fits with the forbidden knowledge aspect of like warlocks, depending on the patron, because they can literally just give you, oh, what's that? You need to understand warfare? Well, for a price, I'll leave you. You get discounted access to the library of all knowledge. Warning: you're only allowed to check out 2 books a month, otherwise your soul is forfeit.
There was an idea I had a long time ago about an evil deity who wanders the Grey Wastes, and his name is just Mr. Grey. But his deal is that he knows everything that no one else knows. So when knowledge is destroyed, like nobody has it, he knows it. He knows that knowledge. But if somebody knows it, he does not know it.
Oh, that's so sad. Because if he ever told anyone anything he knew, he would forget it.
Well,
yes.
he is the idea behind him is that he is like this eldritch being who is basically on a rampage because he does not know who he is or what his name is, and the reason is because someone does, and he has to find them and kill them, and so like he's eating knowledge basically to try and find his name and get it out of. But anyway, I like how that ties into the idea of like a library that is full of knowledge that no one has, and just the idea of anything you put in this library is gone. But while you're at the library, you can have it and you can take it out of the library. And once you take it out of the library, you can remember it. But if you put information in the library, it's just gone. Like the library covets it.
Oh my god, it's like the fucking consciousness of thought is this library is just everything that's been taken out of like anyone's brain.
Right. If you want, it could be like the collective unconscious. It is all people's known knowledge across the world, and only those trained in indexing and finding it can peer in. So technically, as long as someone's alive and they have the knowledge, it will be in this library. Finding it is a different matter.
I like the invert of that too, where it's like it's just the library only contains what we no longer have. No, if you know it, it cannot be in the library. But if you don't know it, if no one knows it, it can be there. And when you enter the library, you can know it while you're in the library, but once you leave, you can't. But under very special circumstances, the library will say, I'm going to give this up. I'm going to let you take this book away.
You take it into the world, and it...
too.
But you have to, that's right. You have to put something in the library, and once you put it in the library, it's gone.
No one else can know. So if you're really metal, you could give up like your own name or identity to the library in exchange.
And you won't even know it once you do it. You'll walk out and you'll never know who you were, but you'll have the information that you want. And like the library would probably base its trade on how much it values that information for whatever reason.
As a side note, if you were an evil character, this bargain suddenly becomes very easy because just have a lot of kids and give up each kid's identity. I get a free spell here, a free spell there. I can wipe him from existence. I can wipe them from existence. I was about to say,
that's the other thing. You literally don't even need to like have your own kids. You just be like, I know of a guy who exists and his name and his like day he was born, his friends who likes him. Here's all the information about this specific guy who I don't care about. But hey, that's a lot of information about one person. Can I get like this like third level spell scroll over here that nobody knows anymore?
Can I get a discount?
Oh my, this is the perfect way for homebrew spells as well. Literally they're spells no one's ever heard of before. So
they were erased from existence because they were too bad, but now you have
they were too bad or too powerful, but now
they're way too overpowered. We have to get rid of this. When you said that you had streamers in this setting, I just kept imagining like Markiplier in this setting, just saying, "Hey, I'm Markiplier," out of nowhere for some reason.
It's kind of like that, but not with Markiplier.
The Ulster. They like stream death matches, fights, great hunts, and other amazing things, which we're gonna have to get into now that we're up there. We've been absent from this area of the world for so long. You guys have a
billion things you guys want to do while you're up there, and you guys have been absent for so long. I may or may not. This will be a fun thing for you to know.
Well, it's been like 3. We're talking about the campaign again, Force. I think
we're basically done for today. Unless you've got any other ideas that have come up, either of you.
I'm tapped out. Also, because I'm starving. I woke up and did this immediately. I've not eaten.
No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, in that case, thank you guys very much for coming out, watching, listening, wherever you listen, YouTube, SoundCloud, or Spotify. Those are the 3 places you can catch us. I have been Force and PowerCore.
Hello.
And our wonderful friend Hippo. Is there anything you want to plug, say? Where can we find you?
Nothing I want to plug particularly. And where I typically don't like to be found, so
we can't find you, is what you're saying. You are hidden in the library where no one knows.
In the basement. I hide in the basement.
There we go.
Okay. We'll have to sacrifice something to summon you next time. Don't worry, I've got plenty of people on standby for that.
That works.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming out and joining us for, I'm sure, yet another rating of Murphy Law that you.
Oh, it's fine. I don't mind at all.
I'm glad.
Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful guest, Hippo.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
All right. And again, thank you guys all for watching and listening. As always, you guys are awesome. Stay awesome and have an awesome night, you awesome little lava monsters. Until next time, I have been Force.
I have been Power. Core.
And I have been Hippo, I guess. Yes.
We are signing off. Bye-bye.
Au revoir.